Pumping that podcast wattage in your cottage, it's Think Digital. Get ready to take the red pill, think different about scaling your business, and free your mind. And now, coming to you live and direct from the Moon, Iowa, the greatest city in the universe. Here's your guy, Justin Wise.
There is no spoon.
Pumping that podcast wattage into your cottage, it's Think Digital. Justin Wise here with you. I am the captain on this good ship. Welcome aboard. Today's topic: what to do when people steal your stuff. What to do when people steal your stuff. And no, I'm not talking about your fancy treble clef pencil. I'm not talking about your designer jeans. I'm talking about your IP, baby. Your intellectual property. What happens when that gets ganked? What do? I'm going to tell you what to do on today's topic, or today's show. Because we're in the information age, or at least that's what Switchfoot tells me, which means that we have passed out of kind of the physical goods age, if you will. And the most people watching this or listening to this are doing some form of knowledge work, meaning you use your brain to do the majority of your work. Most of us are not involved in jobs that involve labor, meaning we don't typically use our hands. This is why everybody's dying of like sitting. So I have a standing desk because people sit too doggone much. We're not people in nature anymore. But because of that, it means that our livelihoods largely revolve around stuff that we can't touch, that we can't necessarily put our hands around. That is called intellectual property in a nutshell. And it's never been more important to have a way for you to guard your intellectual property, but also know when to say when, because you can go berserk, you can go bonkers with this stuff. And I'm going to set this episode up by telling you the tale of two restaurants here in town, here in Des Moines. One is not far from my office. The other is not far from my house. There's two Mexican restaurants in town that we will go to. One is called Malo. One is called Monterey. I'm going to tell you about Monterey first because it is probably the more typical Mexican restaurant that you have been to. It's close to our house, so occasionally we will go to it. And, it operates much like any other Mexican restaurant that you would go to. You go in, you sit down, within 2 seconds, they have a bowl of chips and salsa in front of you. You order a drink. It costs like $2 and comes in a styrofoam cup. You order your food. There's really only 3 things on the menu, and they prepare it like 50 different ways. You go to a Mexican restaurant, you're going to get 1 of 3 things. You're going to get chicken, beef, or pork. And the way that they prepare that is what makes the dish different than the other one. But to some degree, you're going to get a version of, like I said, chicken, beef, or pork. And that's no different at Monterey. So Monterey, you walk in, you order, your food comes out like, I swear they have premonition at these types of restaurants. They know what you're going to order before you sit down. A food comes out, you eat, and you're out the door within 20 minutes, usually. Now, I have 3 kids, so that's more like 45, and the tables usually just look like a bomb went off. But if you're just dining, your average dining experience, you're going to get in, you're going to get good food, not necessarily healthy food, but good food, and you're going to leave, and you're going to leave quick. Because Monterey is optimized for speed. Okay, Monterey is optimized for speed. Do they want you to have a good experience? Sure, but it's not their primary concern. Now, contrast that with Malo. Malo is the Mexican restaurant that's very close to my office, actually where I'm recording this episode right now. And Malo is technically a Mexican restaurant. However, the experience is 10 times different than it is at Monterey. At Malo, you will not spend less than $15 on a drink. At Monterey, you could get a pitcher of margaritas for $15. You know? Malo, you're going to spend $15 for odd drink minimum. At Malo, they have a very cultivated taco menu, meaning like their tortilla wrappers, or tortillas rather, are wrapped in like gold leaf. I'm making that up, but that's the experience they want you to have. It's super high end. They serve super fresh food. A lot of the ingredients are locally sourced from here in Des Moines. And you're not going to leave that place without spending $100 minimum. And that's with 2 people. So I love both restaurants. But Malo is very much, in terms of Monterey, the one thing they share in similarities is what they serve: beef, chicken, pork. But here's where the difference comes in. And this is the point I want to make to you. You know, in business, you can decide to be a Malo. Now, Malo, they optimize for quality. They optimize for experience. So Monterey optimizes for speed. Malo optimizes for experience. But they essentially serve the exact same thing. The core ingredients, the base ingredients are exactly the same. Now, in terms of freshness and quality, those things are differentiators. But in terms of the core fundamental ingredients, they're serving the same thing. Okay, this is all leading somewhere, I promise. And this is where intellectual property and knowing what to do when someone steals your stuff comes into play. So I'm going to come back to Monterey and I'm going to come back to Malo here. Now, fast forward with me. Let's say you have a business. Like many of the people listening to this, you have a business. Most of the people listening to this podcast have some sort of knowledge-based business, meaning you're a coach, you're a consultant, you're an expert, you're a service provider. You're not producing widgets. People are not buying widgets from you. They're buying your brain power. This is gonna play into effect, especially for you. See, when I go to Malo, when I go to Monterey, the difference is how they prepare the base level ingredients. Okay? Beef, chicken, or pork available to both restaurants. But the difference is the recipes they use to produce their dishes using those base ingredients. Okay, so follow with me here. In the knowledge industry, so think digital, for instance, we're an agency, we're a consultancy. We either do people's ads for them or we help people do their own ads. You know, there's a way, anybody can do that. Anybody can go and start running ads and start consulting businesses on digital marketing. Anybody can do that. That's the beef, chicken, or pork, okay? Now, the difference is our recipe. So at Malo, they follow a different recipe book than Monterey does. And Monterey can, let's say a chef from Monterey goes to Malo and has a dish. And they say, this dish is really good. We should incorporate a dish like this onto our menu at Monterey. Totally okay. What the Monterey chef would get in trouble is if he broke into Malo, went into the kitchen, stole all their recipes, and then took those recipes back to Monterey's kitchen, produced those Malo recipes as if they were his own, put them on the menu, and then tried to play it off like he came up with it. Do you see the difference? Huge difference. One is influence, the other is theft. And this is really, really important for knowledge-based businesses, okay? Because the stone cold reality is this. We're all influenced by somebody. You can't help it. Especially in our business, in Think Digital's business, I'm definitely influenced by people. I'm influenced by people like James Altucher. I'm influenced by people like Tim Ferriss, by people like Nicholas Kusmich, by Chris Evans and Taylor Welch over at Traffic and Funnels. There's a high level of influence those people that I named have had on me. My business mentors in the past, they have a high level of influence on me. Now, the difference is I'm not stealing their work, going out trying to play it off as my own. That's where you cross the line. And ultimately, that's what I want to talk about today, is that difference. Because if you're doing good work, if you're doing work that matters, if you're doing work that's valuable, you will influence people. Meaning people will see what you're doing and they will comment to you, hey, it was really cool when you did X, Y, and Z. Hey, when you wrote that email, or hey, when I saw that ad, I thought, man, that was really cool. And I used it in my own ad creation process. Awesome. Great. Love hearing that stuff. But the difference is it influence, meaning you take someone's work and you use it as a base of inspiration for your own, or is it theft? When you take someone else's work, you package it up as if it was yours and try and play it off like you came up with it. Huge, massive difference.
You're listening to Think Digital with Justin Wise. The next step down the rabbit hole is to sign up for the No Spoon newsletter, a free weekly email designed to increase your productivity, grow your influence, and free your mind. Take the red pill and head on over to thereisnospoon.co to sign up.
It's the difference between the Monterey chef going to Malo and being inspired by a dish he has, and a Monterey chef breaking into Malo, stealing the recipes, going back to the kitchen and trying to play those recipes off as their own. Now, I'm not saying that all of, when someone steals your stuff, it's usually not intentional. And so, but sometimes it is. And if it is, I'm not going to talk about if it is intentional. Because if it is intentional, it means you got to get lawyers involved. And that's no fun for anybody. I'm not even going to address that. Mainly because that is like, a lawsuit waiting to happen. And I don't like getting sued. So I'm not even going to go there. If someone intentionally steals your stuff and you know it, that's lawyer land. That's not what we're talking about here. Most cases, people don't know. Most cases, people don't realize, oh, hey, I'm ripping this person's stuff off. And there's a couple different reasons for that. Everybody's got to get their start somewhere. Okay? I know when I was first getting started, I was really influenced by Gary Vee. And so if you go back to my old marketing, my old emails, my old social media posts, you can see a lot of Gary Vee in that stuff, in that content. Now, the difference is I'm not going and yanking Gary Vee's stuff off the internet, putting a different face on it and trying to play it off as my own. And that's the difference. That's the subtle line. But if you notice that people are picking, like my buddies over at Traffic and Funnels, Chris and Taylor, this happens to them all the time, where they will log into Facebook, they will see an ad come through their newsfeed, and it will be the exact copy from an ad that they have running. And what people are doing is literally going and copying and pasting their ads, going into Ads Manager, putting that text there, changing a few of the words, and playing that ad off as if they came up with it. That is theft. That's not influence, that's theft. Huge difference. And, as I ask people about this, because, as we start to gain momentum at Think Digital, I notice this happening more and more. And you can go crazy. I'm just going to say this. You can go crazy if you let yourself go down this road. If you try and, obliterate anyone who you have influence over and maybe goes a little too far over the line and tries to borrow your stuff, you'll go crazy. And so I've asked people who have been in these positions, like, what do you do when this happens? Again, we're not going to lawyer land, so I'm not going to talk about those solutions, but there are solutions. And maybe someday on a different podcast, we'll talk about those. But the ones that don't involve lawyer land, what I have been told and what I have found to be most helpful and most life-giving, life-affirming is this. If you see that people are knocking off your stuff, again, unintentionally, or maybe there's a little bit of intention behind it, but not malicious intent, the best thing you can do, do you know what it is to ignore it. Ignore it and innovate. And this advice was given to me by a number of people in my mastermind, but basically at the point people are knocking off your stuff or using it for influence or whatever, they're 5 to 6 months behind you. They're eating your table scraps. Do you understand that? They're eating the stuff that has fallen off your table, fallen onto the floor, and they're gobbling it up and using it as their meal. They're eating your table scraps. So anyone who's in a position of innovation and influence is going to experience this. And so the best thing you can do is not try and go under the table and fight people for your table scraps. The best thing you can do is to make a better meal. Move on to the next dish. Make a better meal. And that would be my counsel. That's the exact format. That's the exact path that we follow. Is I'm not going to argue with people over my table scraps. I'm not going to try and fight people over my table scraps. I mean, it's low enough. Have you ever seen a dog eat table scraps? Yeah. Picture that. Picture someone eating food off the floor that you've already discarded. And if it's intense enough, it's severe enough, obviously you can go to lawyer land, but 99.9% of the time, you're not going to need to do that. Where what you need to do is to double down and out-innovate the people who are eating your table scraps, because you've already got a 6 to 12 month head start on them. And so as you innovate, as you change, as you measure, as you push, you will continue to outmaneuver anyone who's following you in your wake. You'll outmaneuver, you'll outposition, you'll outmarket, you'll outsell, you'll build a better business, and they'll still be fighting over your table scraps. And so I know it's not a step-by-step solution. It's squishy, but the reason why you're in a position where people can fight over your table scraps is because you've done the hard work. You've innovated, you've built up expertise. You know what you're doing. And other people see that. And so they gather around your table hoping that something will fall to the ground that they can fight over. And I say, let them. Let them fight over your table scraps. Because your focus, your drive is not contingent upon what falls on the floor. Your drive is always better, always pushing, always innovating, always doing something new. It guarantees that you'll stay in front of the pack. And so you never have to worry about what's happening underneath the table. Now, I know that was a lot. I know it's kind of all over the place. I always like to kind of couch these these podcasts and lessons, but I'm going to pull it up there. Because, hey, depending on what industry you're in, you've got your beef, chicken, and pork. Doesn't matter what it is. Maybe it's a way you do ads, or it's a way you coach. Maybe it's, the way you fly planes, or the way you make widgets, right? There's your beef, chicken, and pork. The decision you need to make is, how am I going to use those raw materials and build something new? What direction do I want to take? How do I want to optimize? Do I want to optimize like a Malo that optimizes for experience, or do I want to optimize like a Monterey that optimizes for efficiency and speed, or do I want to be somewhere in the middle? The choice is up to you. And as you do that, as you push, as you gain momentum, scraps are going to fall to the floor and people will fight over them. And I say, let them. The best thing you can do for yourself, for your mindset, for your business is to continue to push. Make up new recipes, if you will. Use the same core ingredients, the beef, chicken, and pork, but make it new. Make it fresh. Push. Choose a different angle. Okay? Okay. It's going to do it for this episode, folks. I want you to tell me one thing that you learned today, one thing you're going to do different. Hit me up on Facebook. Facebook.com/Justin Wise and let me know. The easiest first step for you to make. If, hey, maybe you're listening to this podcast for the first time and you're like, hey, this guy's cool, man. This guy knows what he's doing. Easiest next step for you to take is to go to thinkdigital.co/gift. We have a gift for you. That's thinkdigital.co/GIFT. And if you've been listening to me for a while and you want to take it a next step, my advice to you is let's hop on a call. You can do that at thinkdigital.co/call. That's thinkdigital.co/CALL. And we'll see if we can help. All right. We'll be back next week with another new episode of the Think Digital podcast. In the meantime, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you online. Bye-bye, everybody.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.